Okay. Well, welcome back to, what would normally be our box game day, but since we aren't in school, we aren't able to play, I figured I'd do the digital version for you guys here online. So as I get myself set up, you guys can just sort of watch. We can't really play, but what I'll do is I'll go through each of the questions one by one. Probably do it in a 2-part video. That way, this will help you prepare for our first remote test, which is happening on Monday. Okay, so let me get my screen face out of the way. And let's just get started right away with question number 1. Okay, it says determine if this is growth or decay. So what we see here is we see a table and we're trying to figure out, is this exponential growth or decay? Well, what's important for me is to look at my Y values. Do they appear like they're going up or do they appear like they're going down? Well, it's going 0.125 to 0.25 to 0.5 to 1 to 2 to 4 to 8. This is multiplied by 2. This is going up. That's definitely an example of growth. Okay, so that's just reading a table and being able to find out if it's growth or decay. All right, let's look at the second question. Each week, a reality television show gets rid of half of its contestants. If the show runs for 12 weeks, what is the most amount of people that can be on the show initially if in the end there'll be only 2 contestants? It's a weird question. I know that the formula looks a little something like this. Now you're going, well, why didn't you use the 1 plus R formula? Well, I didn't use that formula because it's telling me that they get rid of half of the contestants each week. Not a percentage, but half of them. So what I don't know is I don't know my initial amount. I don't know A. I know at the end we want to have 2 people. And we get rid of half the people over 12 weeks. So now I go ahead and I got to get my calculator out to do the numbers here. Okay, when you type that in your calculator, you probably got a weird number like I did, 2.44 e to the negative 4th. That's because this is a really small number. I'm just going to keep that number in my calculator. I'm going to divide by 2.44 e to the negative 4th. Divide by 2.4 e to the negative 4th. Okay. Well, if you might be going, well, how do I put that into my calculator? Well, what I would do is I just put 2 divided by 1/2 to the 12th. Put that into your calculator. That'll do the same thing. Doing that here myself. And I get 8,192. That's how many contestants there were at the beginning of the show. 8,192. All right, go ahead and hit pause if you need to take down some notes, or if you want to jot down that you might have a question on this one that you want to go over with me in the Google Meet. Go ahead and do that. I'm going to delete or erase all the drawing here. And move on to our third question. Okay, question number 3 says evaluate 2 times 1/4 x when f of negative 3. So that just means that x is equal to negative 3. That's all. So we're going to go 2 to the 1/4 to the negative 3. And I'm just going to type that right into my calculator. 2 times 1/4 caret 3. Hit enter, and I got this. 0.03125. I'm trying to think if that makes sense. Let me pause the video and just look over my work. Yeah, I made a mistake. I didn't type it in my calculator as to the negative 1/3. I put it in as a 1/3. Knew that answer didn't seem right. When you put it in as the negative 1/3, which I should have done, you get an answer of 128. That makes a whole lot more sense to me. Okay, so 128 it is. That's just a matter of substituting in and evaluating it. Okay, pause it if you need to. There it goes. Moving on to the fourth question. Is this growth or decay? Well, that question is really just asking, can you look at this and identify it yourself? This is the general form of the equation, and it's the B value that's going to determine whether or not it's growth or decay. That's the ratio. That's the common ratio it's multiplied by. In our case, it's 3/4. So if I multiply something by 3/4, does it get bigger or smaller? It gets smaller, okay? If that B value is anything less than 1, you're talking about decay. So this is an example of exponential decay because this is less than 1. If that was anything greater than 1, we'd be looking at growth. Okay, out of that. On to the next one. Explain in detail how to graph f of x equals 5 to the x. Well, I'll just explain that in detail to you. I can't pull up a calculator on my computer right now, but if I were, I have one right next to me. You can't, well, actually, let's put this on. Maybe I can do it this way. Okay, there it is. It's my calculator. Okay. Now, what I'm going to simply do is I'm going to hit my y equal to, clear off anything that might be there, put 5 caret x, and just hit graph. And there you have it. Pretty simple. Now, if I had to do this by hand, I'd need to get some of those values. So I'd hit second table, and I would get those values. And I look at, it's pretty reasonable if you go from like -2 to 1. Those numbers in the table are pretty reasonable to graph. So maybe I graph those ones. Okay, there you go. There's your detailed explanation about how to graph f of x equals 5x. All right, determine the equation of the exponential function in the table. Ooh, I remember these on one of the homeworks. So I know it's y equals a b to the x. These are not any of the percentage problems yet. So we're not looking at the 1 plus r, the 1 minus r yet. That hasn't come up yet. Maybe that'll come up in some other questions. That hasn't come up here yet. All right, so I need my initial value. That's right here where x is equal to 0. So a is going to be 3. So my equation is y equals 3. Now I need to find my b value. Just take any number and divide it by the number in front of it. 96 divided by 48 is 2. So my b value is 2. So 3 times 2 to the x is my equation. And that works with any of the other numbers too. 48 divided by 24 is 2. 24 divided by 12 is 2. 12 divided by 6 is 2. That's all there is to it to coming up with the equation. So maybe I'd put one of those on the exam and ask you to explain it. Who knows? Okay, let's see who comes up next. Here's one of those ones with a R value in it. I can see it right away because I see this, 12%. All right, John purchased a savings bond worth $1,500. It will gain 12% interest, which is compounded semi-annually. I'm going to underline that because that's going to be important. How much will the savings bond be worth in 7 years? Now, I will give you each of these formulas on the exams. You don't have to worry about that. You just need to know how to use them. This is the compound interest formula. This is the most recent thing that we just learned. The N number in that formula is how many times you compound it. Semi-annually means twice a year. So we're going to be putting 2 in there for that. 1,500 is how much he starts with. The R value is 0.12. The N, as we said before, is 2. The time, 7 years. The N is 2. Now, before I do anything else, I do a little bit of the math here. And 0.12 divided by 2 is 0.06. And 1 plus 0.06 is 1.06. 7 times 2 is 14. So I like to at least do that much math before I go ahead and type this thing into my calculator. Now I'm just going to go ahead and type it in. 1,500 times 1.06 to the 14th and end up with $3,391.36. cents. That's how much it'll be worth in 7 years. And again, I use that compound interest formula because the problem talked about the interest compounding. All right, we'll do one more and then I'll make a separate video for the other ones. Let me clear this off. That way it's not one whole super long video. All right, last one we'll do. Then I'll make a video for the others. Okay, one more evaluate one. It says evaluate 2/3 6 to the x. It's an exponential expression because our x is our exponent. So it's just 2/3 times 6 to the second. Looks to me like I'm going to end up with an answer of, hold on. I'm just typing this into my calculator. That's what I'm doing here. Ended up with 24. 6 squared is 36. 36 times 2. 72 divided by 3 is 24. So there you have it. If you want to put that step in between here, 2/3 times 36, that's what 6 squared is. Get 24. Okay, I'm going to stop this video here. I'm going to pause it. That'll be the end of the first video.